Love lives here.
Good morning, Riverside, and all you love streamers, wherever you might be. I see that the Big Island of Hawaii is represented here today, and I am so thrilled to be with you. My name is Reverend Dr. Victoria Bomberry, and as I was introduced, I'm the new Minister of Transformational Programming here at Riverside. And I am so thankful that this community has welcomed me home with such open hearts and have supported. Well, you're already supporting the vision of transformation, and that position was perfect, right? Because that's what my life has been devoted to, is transformation in all ways that make our lives bloom and just come alive. And I am just thinking about, what transformation means. Transformation doesn't just mean going from point A to point B. It is a real thing that that once you do it, you don't go back. Once you transform, you don't go back to a previous form. So we're here in this creative process, doing something that has never been done before and creating that world that we want to live in, bringing that heaven on earth to this present moment. We look at the butterfly, and the butterfly is, first of all, goes through all these stages. And once it gets to the butterfly stage, it doesn't say, oh, I'm ready to be a caterpillar again. I think I'll go back there. No, what it does is it starts to unfurl its wings, and it just begins to beat them, and they get stronger and stronger, and they get more skillful at getting those wings ready to fly. And that's what transformation is all about. We are creating and getting into that position right now of creating that strength in the wings and getting ready to just lift off and fly. And that's what Riverside is all about. And I'm so happy to be a part of this community again. We have homes, and we sometimes go away from those homes for a bit and do our little things that we do, or our big things that we do. But there's always that home to come back to. And that's what Riverside is for me. It's my home. And I also know that wherever you are, that's your home, but this is also a home for you. So welcome, everyone. And if you put your comments into the chat box, I'll see them. And I'm really excited about seeing those comments come up, because that creates that sense of connection for all of us. And, since we're doing this new technology where I can't see you in person, this is the next best thing. I can see those comments coming in, and that lets me know that my voice is loud enough, or I'm reaching you, or, something in particular touches you. So let me know. That's how we're creating this energy in this community. So the title of my talk this morning is Do It Anyway. And, the thing about coming home is something that, all these memories get stirred up. And the first time I ever heard this song was right here in Riverside. And it was sung at a karaoke night by one of our members. And I remember just being so moved by that song. So today, for my debut talk here at Riverside as your Minister of Transformational Programming, it just made my heart just soar to know that song was inspiring this talk. Now, I know that we've been living in this miasma of emotions. We've been just going through all kinds of things in 2020. And I keep saying, okay, we prayed to be able to see things clearly. We wanted to have 2020 vision. And this is what it looks like, right? To see everything all at once, just coming up and coming into our consciousness to be addressed. And yep, here we are. We're right here, right in the middle of it. And I know that we have been, really working through this year. We've had all of the current events that are going on. We've had our hearts broken open in all kinds of ways. We've been living with a global pandemic. We've had personal tragedies in our life and loss, and we have been living life intensely in 2020. We've been seeing life intensely in 2020, and we have really looked at who we are individually and who we are collectively. This has been a time of intense scrutinizing of our lives. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we've had this time to open ourselves up to all of life. We can kind of get tunnel vision sometimes and get comfortable in our little, our little cocoons, right? And we're not wanting to come out quite yet. We're just going to stay in that cocoon. But we're being called right now to come out and spread our wings, to come together and create solutions to all of these things that are screaming to be addressed. And in the midst of all this, my heart has just been lifted up so high when I've seen the kindness of my neighbors. There's one thing about getting gray hair, right? That brings something out. My neighbors have been so wonderful to me. There's young people who've always come over and, they'll say we're going, or they'll call me and they say, we're going to the store. Do you need anything? Or they'll come over and do something for me. And, it's just this really heartening kind of thing that, just makes me know that we are absolutely good at the center of our being. That's who we are. That's who we definitely are. And then there's there's those that, I get heartbroken when I see someone who is doing something that is damaging to the collective or to the whole, right? Or to themselves. And then that breaks my heart open. So this roller coaster that we've been on is just life. It's just life. And I am grateful every day that I can be alive in this moment, because it is exactly what I was born for. And I know it's exactly what each and every one of you was born for. And, the other day we did this beautiful, beautiful exercise that was led by Neil. It was about our values. And it was wonderful to see all these values that people have and what their number one value ended up being in that moment. And of course, love lives in Riverside. So that was very prominent, that idea of love. But also, we had all kinds of other expressions and values that were represented in this community. And that's just exactly what we need, because we need all of that. We need those diversities. We need that part of us that is speaking to us. If wholeness is speaking to you and you live that life as a whole person, then you're bringing that to the table. You're bringing that to our community. If it's peace, if it's harmony, if it's abundance, whatever it is, we need all of that, because we need one another. And we are in this moment together. Now, I started thinking about, all of the talks that we've had. We've spent a lot of time about fear this month. And I have a story that stays with me. It's a story that really taught me about fear in a big way, because I was scared witless. And I kind of have this conceit, that I'm this fearless person and all of that. That's just a conceit. That's not real. I have plenty of fears that I've had to, work through, or I'm still working on right now. But when I was a young woman, I lived in Hawaii for about 5 years. And one time I wanted to go up in the mountains and get some bananas, because there's these really sweet, beautiful bananas that are up in the mountains and they grow wild. So I decided that I was going to go up there and get some bananas. Now, remember, mountains, right? I'm from Oklahoma. You know, uh, I guess our mountains are kind of like little mounds, right? Or else it's pretty, it's the plains, the Great Plains. So mountains are kind of a big challenge for me. Those heights are a big challenge. And I just figured, oh yeah, I'll go climb up there and it'll be just fine. So I went and I went up, and I had my little poi dog Smoke with me, and it's about this big. He's about that big, about, yay tall. And he and I were up there and we were climbing. And I got to a point where I got so scared. And I just stopped. I was paralyzed with fear. And in that moment, I kind of looked down, and it was all rocks at the bottom, right? And I was up really high, and I was stuck. I was stuck, and I was just clinging. I had my hands just wrapped around these outcroppings, and I couldn't find a place that I could put my foot next. And I stayed that way. I don't know how long. In that, while it was going on, it felt like it was hours, right? That I was just clinging to the side of the cliff. And I was so scared. And I think I would have stayed there forever, right? I think I could have stayed there forever if it hadn't been for my little dog Smoke, who must have gotten really tired, or maybe he felt my fear and thought he needed to help me. And he kind of went around me, and he went up, and he found the way. And I could see where his little footprints went, and I followed him the rest of the way up. And, I really think about that often, because, as we climb these big challenges, as we move through these big challenges, there are times when we get paralyzed with fear. And yet God is always there. God is always there with us. And it may be in the form of a little poi dog. It may be in the form of your neighbor. It may be in the form of something that you read or something that you hear. But God is always in that moment. God is always with us. So I made it to those beautiful banana plants, and I got my bananas, and I made it back home. But that story has stayed with me forever, knowing that there is goodness in this world. There is a solution in this world for every problem that we have. And what I was fearful of? I was fearful of being annihilated in that moment, right? So all of those fears just went right through me when I was clinging to the side of that cliff. But God was there. God was there. Now, we're moving through so much right now, and yet we know God is there. God is in every moment. And I want to always remember that. Now, Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, says, when people's thought rests entirely on themselves, they become abnormal and unhappy. But when they give themselves with enthusiasm to any legitimate purpose, losing themselves in the thing which they are doing, they become normal and happy. Only as much life enters into us as we can conceive. And we conceive of life in the larger sense only when there is complete abandonment to it. Let the one who is sad, depressed, or unhappy find some altruistic purpose into which they may pour their whole being, and they will find a new inflow of life which they have never dreamed. So let's look at that passage. It sounds kind of funny to talk about normal in this passage because we've been kind of talking about that. Well, when can things get back to normal? When can they go back to normal? Well, that normal time has passed. We are in a transformational moment right now. That moment has passed. But what does Ernest Holmes mean when he says normal in this passage? Well, I think he is talking about who we really are. What is normal for a human being? What is normal for a human being is to really know that we are those divine emanations of God. Now, the Buddha always reminded us with the saying, "Oh, nobly born, remember who you are." We're in a time of remembering right now. We're remembering who we are. Because you are here today, right with us, right here, right now. You have heard that still small voice inside asking you to remember exactly who you are. And in this community, I know that we have had people remembering that they're love, remembering that they're peace, remembering that they're harmony, remembering that they are prosperous. They are remembering what they're bringing into this world at this very moment. And I really, think about, what does it mean to find that altruism in our lives? To get beyond, kind of living our lives on automatic pilot, which I think was the normal that a lot of people are craving. Oh, can I just go back and go to work and come home, or do my comfortable things that I've done in the past? Um, and just kind of going through life like you have a blindfold on, right? And not living life fully, not engaging in life in a really powerful way. And that's what we're called to do. And that's what Ernest Holmes is talking about when he says, find that altruism. Find something that you can set your sights on, that you can bring into existence, where you can use your gifts, that you can use that beautiful note that you've come here to sing, or maybe a whole song or a symphony. But find that, use it, step into that life powerfully, and be that person that you are, that noble person, that beautiful person, that powerful person. We are exploring. Yes, we are explorers, these incredible explorers of consciousness. And we can bring our whole being to that. Now, some of you may have heard of the organization Charity Water, and it brings clean and safe drinking water to people in developing countries. And I grew up in Eastern Oklahoma as a child, and then my family was the first family to move into the city, and of our extended family. So we moved into the city. But we had all of our relatives lived in the country, and the country was back in the 50s. People didn't have water. or many people didn't have water. Many people didn't have toilets. Many people didn't have gas, or all of those things that we think that everyone had back in the 20th century. No, they didn't, and a lot of people still don't, even in this country. And I remember how precious water was, and I'm glad that I had that experience, because I know how precious water is. Having to carry water from miles away, in buckets, so that you have something to use to cook with, or catching rainwater so you could take a bath, or do those cleaning things that you need to do. And this charity water is working to bring clean, safe drinking water to countries that don't have that incredible resource available to them. And it was founded by a guy named Scott Harrison, and he wrote an autobiography titled Thirst, a story of redemption, compassion, and a mission to bring clean water into the world. Now, Scott Harrison is a natural-born storyteller, so if you have a chance, go and listen to one of his talks, and better yet, get his book. His book is really fantastic. And it's a really honest and forthright, and it embodies the spirit of do it anyway. And that means in every kind of way imaginable, do it anyway. Things that we would consider maybe destructive, he did it anyway. And then the more constructive things in his life that seemed almost impossible, he did anyway. He was born into a middle-class family, and he had a mother who was a writer at the local newspaper, and his father was a businessman. And, they moved to this house where, so his father could be closer to his work, so he could spend more time with the family. And, it was kind of the dream, of moving into this town and having this nice house, and having that perfect life. And they didn't know it, but this house that they moved into had a carbon monoxide leak. So all of them got sick. Every single person in the household, it was he and his mother and father, and they all got sick. But his mother got deathly ill, and because she was poisoned by this carbon monoxide gas, her immune system was completely wiped out. And it took a long time for, going to many, many doctors to actually get a diagnosis of what had occurred for her. But she lived, as her immune system was completely destroyed. There were things that they had to do to keep her alive. And, she basically had to be protected from everything around her. And one of the things that she loved was reading, and they would wrap up books in plastic and then put them in a big plastic container so that she could hold the books to read. And, that was just a daily thing. So everything became this Herculean task that she, that would make her life livable. And Scott was, he was brought up as a Christian. His mother and father were staunch Christians, and he was a good Christian boy, and he helped his mother. He wanted to be a doctor so he could cure his mother from her illness. And, he went along like this, for probably about 10 years in this role of taking care of his mother, being the perfect little boy, doing everything, that he thought was right in that moment. And when he hit 18, something happened, something clicked. And he decided that he wanted to be in a band, So he's playing music with some friends. They went to New York City, and he grew his hair out long, and he in the band went to New York City to make it big. And they got there and they realized that they just really hated each other. So it's kind of that typical story that you hear a lot about bands that happen to a lot of bands. And they broke up. But he found out that there was another kind of job he could do, and it was getting people into all these nightclubs. So he could make a good living by bringing beautiful people into nightclubs and just stacking those people in, where they would spend exorbitant amounts of money on liquor, and they would have $500 bottles of champagne that were the prices were marked up really high, or they would have vodka Red Bulls that cost $50. It was just this kind of extravagant, over the top kind of existence. And he really got into it. And he and his friend found out that running this business of getting people into these nightclubs and being a nightclub promoter, that they would even get paid to drink. So they got paid $5,000 a month for drinking Bacardi, just being shown in public drinking Bacardi. And Budweiser paid them another $4,000 a month for showing up in public and drinking Budweiser. So they were just raking in this cash, plus all the money they were getting from all these nightclubs. And things just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. And he finally just got into all kinds of drugs. He said that he stopped short of heroin, but he was doing cocaine, and he was the pictures that he in his talks that he shows of himself, he's just he just looks just completely wasted. We use that term in North America, in the US, wasted. And it really does describe what he looked like. He looked wasted in every way imaginable. Now, this went on for 10 years. He was living this life. And he says that he saw a picture of himself. Well, later, and he was really wasted, and he was holding up his Rolex watch so people could see his Rolex watch. And when he looked at it later, he was just like, wow, that was the most important thing to me, to be able to show off my Rolex watch. And he had an epiphany. He's living this life of being addicted in multiple ways to multiple things that are destructive. He was really taking that walk on the wild side. And he had an epiphany. He went on vacation, on this opulent vacation to South America. He had a villa with servants, and they had everything at their disposal. And he had had a group of friends there, and they were doing their usual thing that they did in New York. They were drinking and doing drugs, and doing all the things that they were doing then. And he went out for a walk, and all at once he realized that he was completely spiritually bankrupt. He was unhappy. He was depressed, even though he had all of these things that, all of these shiny things. They had absolutely no meaning. Absolutely no meaning. And he decided that he had to make a change. So when he went home, he decided that this change had to be a dramatic change. And he wanted to make a 180-degree turn. He wanted to do everything opposite of what he had been living for that decade. And he wanted to know, well, what would it look like if I did everything on the opposite way? And he thought that it would be by serving the poor. So that was his vision. I'm going to serve the poor. This is, this other way is not working. It's not bringing me any kind of meaning or any kind of satisfaction. And so what he did was he started sending out letters to volunteer for, and all these big organizations, all the big organizations like Oxfam, every organization that he could even find, he started sending out letters. And he'd been living as this nightclub promoter for 10 years, and all of them said no. There wasn't a place for him in their organization. And finally, after a lot of continuing, being persistent about this, he got a letter back from an organization, and they said that if you're willing to live in post-war Liberia, he didn't even know where Liberia was, and pay us $500 a month, you can come and work with us. And he jumped at it, right? That was okay with him. So he had to, get himself ready, and he thought that he would do it anyway, even if he was paying to work, right? He was going to do it anyway. And he didn't let anything deter him. He had a degree in communications, and he had he knew how to take pictures. And like I said, he's a really good storyteller. So he thought he could bring those skills to bear with this organization. And that's what he did. And the organization was Mercy Ships. And I had never heard of it before I read his book. And it is an incredible organization that shows up with, it's a ship. It's an actual ship that's a hospital. And they go to different places, and they bring doctors to areas that have no hospitals or no services, and they provide needed health care. And oftentimes, these incredible surgeries for people who would never be able to be healed otherwise. And he got to know one of the doctors there, who was Dr. Gary Parker, and he became a kind of a mentor to him, about, and he watched how he lived his life. And Dr. Gary Parker had arrived there, and he was going to do like a 3-month stint, and he ended up staying for 20 years. So he saw altruism, in other words, up close and very personal. And he saw how much this was giving to Gary Palmer and all of the people who were working on that ship. And I just want to tell you one more story about this. And there was a young man who had a severe deformity, and he could barely breathe. And he prayed that a hospital would show up so that he could get the operation that he needed. And he prayed, and people made fun of him. They laughed at him. They thought that he was just completely nuts. That's never going to happen. They said all these things to him. And Mercy Ship showed up. It was a hospital. It showed up close to his community. He was able to walk there and get the operation that he needed. And that is an example of this incredible faith. Who would ever imagine that a hospital would show up in your community when you live somewhere out in a rural area that is an out-of-the-way place that no one even knows about. That hospital showed up for this young man who had this tremendous faith that he would be healed. Now, this was a turning point for Scott Harrison too, because he took pictures of this young man, the before and after pictures. And, to make a long story short, and I hope you get the book, he transformed through this work. He started seeing where he could make a difference. And he realized that a lot of the things that they were seeing and treating could have been prevented had people had clean drinking water. So that became his mission in life, to bring clean drinking water to this community. Now, he, like lots of people, probably wouldn't have done this had he known really what was involved in doing it. But he did it anyway. He just rushed in because there was a need. There was that need there, and he was setting aside that past that he left behind. He was in the process of transformation. He was building that strength in his wings so that he could soar. And here he is. He finds the niche that he can fill, and he does it. And he spent years, the past 12 or 13 years, working on this project, bringing clean water. And if you go into it, you can see all the mistakes that he made. And that's what I love about it, because he's so honest. And, one thing that I want to make very clear, when we're doing this selfless work, we can call it seva, we can call it whatever we want to call it. We're setting aside, that the smallness in us to step into something much larger. And we're heeding those words, love your neighbor. Love your neighbor. But right now, I'm telling you, love your neighbor as yourself, and work on yourself too. Don't love your neighbor instead of yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So these things go hand in hand together. We work on ourselves at the same time that we're transforming ourselves. We're stepping into the world as who we really are. We don't love instead. We love in this beautiful kinship, this mutual recognition, this mutual help that we're giving one another. That's what we're about. That's who we are. That's who we came to be. And it's not just person to person, it is with all of creation. That is the promise that we have been given when we stepped into this incarnation. We can live life as large as we want, as large as we build our capacity to receive. And that is wonderful. And, we don't have to do a big project like Scott Harrison stepped into. We can also be that householder that takes care of our family, that takes care of those right around us, that smiles at people, that brings people in, that, just creates that feeling of a warm, loving embrace wherever they go. And you know who those people are. When they step into the room, we know who they are, and we are uplifted by that. The thing is that we live our lives as who we are. Remember who you are. And know that, like Nehemiah, we've come here to do a great work. And we're not coming down. We are in that great high place. And we are not coming down. And so it is. And let's just turn within right now. And let's take that deep breath, knowing that God is in this very moment. The living spirit is right here, right in the center of our being. We are in it and it is in us. And we are overflowing. There's not a difference between inflow and outflow. It is all one flow. And I am so grateful for this beautiful community. I am so grateful for all of those who show up as who they are, who show up knowing that they are in the process of becoming, that they are building that strength in their wings, that they are ready and willing and able to serve, to step into that action that faith requires to be real. You know, we're all like that velveteen rabbit that has to live life and love fully to become real. And that's what we're doing. We're becoming more real, more authentic, more ourselves each time we open our heart. Each time we let our heart be broken wide open, we are becoming more of who we are. And I'm so grateful for this. I'm grateful for all the opportunities to serve that we are given. I'm grateful that our eyes are open, that we are ready to explore this new terrain of possibilities. There's no going back. And there is also this returning that is occurring. We are returning to spirit, returning right here and right now. And I accept all of this good as it washes over each and every person, knowing that we are divinely guided, supported, and protected in everything that we do. And I let it be. And so it is.
Love